Hey there, this is Kevin here from maximizingecommerce.com. I help people build e-commerce businesses they can be proud of. And in this particular video, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on, I don't mean this to devolve into politics in any way, shape, or form, but some tariffs that have been proposed by the US government, and kind of China has responded with their own tariffs on US goods. And how is that going to affect us? Well, right now, as far as I know, no one's been charged anything. And, a friend of mine actually texted me. I wasn't even thinking about doing this video, but I'm just batching a bunch of videos here today. A friend of mine texted me asking me this question. So I felt like, this would probably be a good thing to talk about that we can all learn from. So if you have any insight into this, please leave it down below, because by no means am I an expert on this. But my general take on it is if and when tariffs do happen, it'll raise the costs. Now, there's a few things you could do. So if you have a product that's affected by it, guess what? Probably everyone that's selling the same products is going to be affected by it. So if your cost goes up by, let's say 25% is the tariff, well, you could raise your cost by 25%. You could raise it by 15%. You could do whatever. So you could eat into some of your margins. You could pass all of the cost off to the consumer. And sometimes you could keep the same profit, but not increasing it by 25%. You might just have a smaller profit margin, but you're charging more. You just have to kind of walk through the math and see what works for you. But I'll worry about that when it happens. And it's a general philosophy I've learned of, if you think about it, you got the things that you can influence and the things that you're concerned about. So this is getting a little bit into 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. But or just general mindset, if you worry all about what might happen or what's been proposed to happen, I mean, how many times have you heard a politician, and I'm not getting into whoever's in office now, this is across the board, we're going to do this, and this doesn't always happen. Or we're going to do this and something slightly different. So maybe the US and China will come together, because at the end of the day, we need them and they need us. Here in the US, China produces a lot of our goods, whether that's good or bad or whatever. Then in China, they buy some of our stuff and they need us to buy their goods. That's how an economy works. We have a very global economy now. Now, let's say, what is the worst case scenario? Now, that's getting into what things I'm concerned about versus the things I can influence. And the likelihood of that happening is low. But sometimes if you just play what is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario, China says we're not shipping anything to the US, and the US says we're not going to ship anything to China, and we're not going to buy any of China's goods. Let's just say that's the worst case here, especially if you're like me and you're getting a lot of your stuff from China. Well, what might happen? Guess what? People in the US are still going to want stuff. Right now, a lot of our stuff we're getting from China. It's being manufactured in China. There's a lot of stuff that happens in China that's made in China that people want. Well, now all of a sudden there's going to be new industries created around serving people in a different way. It might be a little bit of a pain on the front end to try to, adapt to it, but there'll be some sort of new opportunity. And if you can learn to adapt to it, there'll be an opportunity. You might even be better off than you are now. But again, that is a worst case scenario. But what is something that's within the circle of what you can influence or control? Not what the politicians do or what governments, come up with, or whether or not there's tariffs or how that affects the market, whatever it is. But knowing that you can adapt to it. You know what? Stuff changes all the time. Sometimes it's something that's favorable. Sometimes it's something that's not favorable. But if you focus on what you can control, and that is saying, where are the holes in the market, so to speak, that people need help, and you keep that mentality of service. I'm serving a market. So if you're serving a market on Amazon, and you're serving a market on it's buying products from China to sell on Amazon, that's kind of your market. But let's say we cut off the border to China and somehow Amazon goes away. Well, guess what? People still need to buy things. So there's going to be all kinds of different ways that you can do that, because the demand for quality goods doesn't go away. So yes, right now, that's where we're getting everything is from, not everything, but a lot of what we get in this country is from China. So maybe we do more USA stuff. Maybe all of a sudden some other country that we still have a good relationship with steps up and says, hey, you know what? Here in Cambodia, we're going to sell a lot of XYZ goods. Here in pick the country, maybe all of a sudden we start buying stuff from Zimbabwe. I don't know. I don't know. Someone's probably going to tell me I'm way off base and geopolitical talk, but some country is going to step up. Maybe it's not as easy to deal with in China. The culture is going to be a little different, whatever the case is. But maybe we start buying more stuff from New Zealand. Maybe we start, who knows? Don't get caught up in the logistics of, well, that's not a good idea, or that's not going to work now. Somebody is going to step up, whether it's in the US, somewhere else. And if you just stay ahead of the curve, so to speak, of like, okay, this is where I'm at now, and if something changes, I'm going to roll with it and not get too worried about it, then you'll do fine. So if you're thinking about getting started, and this is preventing you from getting started, or if you're thinking about rolling into a product or doing something different, nothing officially has happened yet. And even if it just ends up being that you have a 25% tariff, well, guess what? It's just going to be a little bit more expensive to buy the good and to import something in. And then you can make a business decision. Guess what? Your competitors are going to have to make the same business decisions. So if someone doesn't raise their price at all, they'll probably end up going out of business because they're going to lose all their margin. And a lot of others are going to start raising their price. And you know what? Don't worry too much about price. I think there's a lot of people out there that have this philosophy of like, oh, it's a race to the bottom and I got to have the lowest price. Sometimes I've found by raising my price, I actually have higher conversion rates and more people buy. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's they suddenly perceive that people view like, oh, at that price point, it must be a higher quality good. And so there's that option. So again, I just don't want to get too caught up in the what ifs, because you can what if yourself to death. And I'm guilty of this a lot, of what ifing, like, oh God, I get nervous about, what if this happens? What if that happens? You know what? I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. The most successful people out there cross that bridge when they get there. Elon Musk, wants to launch rockets ships into space. I can see them from my house sometimes, which is kind of cool. See this little fireball, because we're about an hour and a half south of Port Canaveral where they shoot them off, but a little tiny fireball going up into the sky. Well, guess what? I wouldn't see little tiny fireballs that Elon made if he was too worried about whether or not they'd blow up. Guess what happened? First couple launches he had, they blew up. What did he do? He made changes, improved, and now all of a sudden they got these amazing rockets that go up. I feel like I'm constantly hearing people talk about like, oh, SpaceX is going to do another launch. You know what? He didn't give up. Things got difficult. He didn't give up. Things might get difficult for you. Guess what? Don't give up. So hopefully you found this video to be helpful. And if you did, I would love it if you can give a thumbs up. And if you've not already, subscribe to this channel. And if you're looking to get started in this business, if you look down below, there's actually a link to a free mini course that I've got where I'm going to walk you through some of the basics that I've learned along the way. Now I'm 2.5 years into this, and I'm having the time of my life. I'm loving it. The business is growing, and you know what? I've learned a lot. I'd love to share some of that with you. So thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I'm going to wish you the best on your e-commerce journey. Take care. Bye-bye.